Tuesday, 49:42 a.m., right between my second cup of coffee and the mental scream I reserved for Chad's optimization stand-ups, I stood in front of HaldenTech's glass turnstile. I swiped my badge again. Red, then again, still red. Louis, the junior security guard, the same one who cried during a fire drill last fall, couldn't look at me. Instructions from HR, he mumbled, clinging to his walkie-talkie like it was a lifeline. Then my phone buzzed. One new email. Subject line termination, effective immediately. No call, no meeting, no box of my things. Just one cold sentence, like someone peeled my name off the org chart with a butter knife. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just turned, walked to my car, and shut the door behind me. Soft click. For the first time in almost 8 years, I took a breath that didn't taste like recycled air and someone else's ego. And while I sat there, engine off my personal laptop, back at home, pinged once. Quiet. Clean. Protocol Halcyon initialization sequence active. They'd tripped the wire. Before I go on, this isn't just another tech meltdown. And if you're in the 97% who haven't subscribed yet, maybe fix that. Helps us stay caffeinated, helps me stay calm. Now, let's keep going. I drove home like it was any Tuesday. Past the taco stand I used to hit after migrations. Past the strip mall with the shuttered candle store and the broken neon sign. Radio off. Silence thick. My mind was already sorting through the breadcrumbs, the checks I'd built into their systems 5 years ago. Because they never really knew what I did, but I did. I was the skeleton in their infrastructure. At 10:27 a.m., I opened my terminal. There it was. Step 2 of 12 contingency checksum initiated. And just like that, HaldenTech had no idea what was coming. I took a sip of chamomile and watched the rain sketch crooked trails down my kitchen window. What I felt wasn't relief, not even rage. It was clarity. 8 years? 8 years holding that company together while overpaid frat bros threw agile buzzwords at whiteboards and marketing clowns named tools, things like Data Halo and Cloud Sprinkle. And now they'd fired the only person who knew where the digital bones were buried. What they didn't know, they never asked. And what they never asked, I never offered. Because I wasn't just part of their infrastructure. I was the infrastructure. I didn't just build it. I became it. Every line of code, every permission hierarchy, every blind spot I patched while they handed out raises for Slack emojis. Chad, the new COO with too much teeth and too little sense, once called me legacy overhead in a strategy call. Said I wasn't scalable. Cute from a guy who thought Kubernetes was a Greek appetizer. His mistake. He thought redundancy meant backup plans for them. My redundancy plan had one purpose, me. By 11:02 a.m., Protocol Halcyon had reached Step 4 diagnostic sweeps, running through shadow nodes I'd built 3 years ago during a budget freeze. Nothing erased yet, just the hammer cocked. HR called again. Deleted. Unknown number. Declined. They were starting to feel the edges fray. But the real unraveling that wouldn't hit until 1:06 p.m. when the first cluster blinked out and no one would know why. I stretched, poured more tea, and cracked my knuckles over the keyboard. I wasn't done watching. I was just getting comfortable. The building had once been a thrift store. I still remember the mannequins in the lobby the day I started. Some genius had installed server racks where the dressing rooms used to be and asked me seriously if cooling fans came scented. I was 35 when I took the role. DevOps liaison, 6-month contract. 8 years later, the HVAC still rattled like a dying lawnmower, but I rebuilt their entire tech stack, one quiet patch at a time. Because I'd been burned before, and this time, I built something they couldn't steal. I built systems inside systems, invisible breadcrumbs, masked identities, decoy accounts tied to sandbox subnets, a heartbeat monitor script that only pulsed if I was still present in the system. And buried underneath all that one name, mine, hidden beneath layers of encrypted token shell demons and a documentation web so deliberately tangled that no one could have navigated it without a PhD in me. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it to protect myself. Like building a house with a secret exit tucked behind a bookshelf, just in case the fire ever came. Then came Chad. He pulled into the lot driving a Range Rover, parked across 2 handicapped spaces, like it was a power move. Hair gelled so tight it looked shellacked. Called himself a fixer. The kind of guy who ends emails with thoughts and once asked if we backed up to the cloud or just like the internet. Second week on the job, he hosted a town hall and said on a hot mic, no less, that we needed to clear out the legacy baggage in engineering and make room for high-velocity talent. I didn't flinch, but something in me cracked. Not glass. Ice. First time he spoke to me, he asked, "So what exactly do you do here?" I could have told him. Could have said without me one spilled coffee and the whole thing goes dark. That our uptime stats only looked good because I rewrote the monitors by hand after his consultants botched the initial config. But I just smiled, blinked, and said, just legacy baggage. Let him believe it, because while Chad was budgeting for beanbags and hiring project managers with inspirational quote tattoos, I was building a fortress. By year 3, the system had outgrown their documentation. Not by mistake, by design. I was the documentation. Every daemon, every override my fingerprints, but nothing pointed back to me directly. An architecture of shadows, complex, untouchable, mine. They saw me as the cranky woman in ops who never used Slack emojis. Joked I was on the spectrum of doom. What they missed was this. The server room didn't run on luck. It ran on me. He laughed. I didn't. Because the truth was, Protocol Halcyon wasn't a trap. It was a mirror. It only activated if the system sensed it was no longer safe, firing me without a proper offboarding. That wasn't just careless, it was the digital equivalent of kicking open a bear's den and lighting a match. And now, the bear was very much awake. They used to call me overcautious. Said I hoarded knowledge. HR even flagged me once for not sharing workflows with cross-functional clarity, whatever that meant. Never mind the fact that my team was a Slack channel with one junior guy who thought Jason was a Pokemon evolution. Sure, it stung at first. But humiliation doesn't stay soft for long. It hardens. And I stayed late, not because I was slow, but because I was stitching my name into the walls, the pipes, the crawl spaces of their digital empire. Because I knew. One day, someone would try to erase me. And when they did, the system wouldn't scream. It would go quiet, then whimper, then burn. At 1:06 p.m., exactly 60 minutes after they nuked my badge like it was a library card. From 1997, Node 3B blinked out. No flashing lights. No sirens. It just stopped existing. Routine self-check failure. Credentials revoked. Triggered by a ghost key I planted years ago. Label coffee break. Protocol SH. The purge began like a whisper. In the converted IT bullpen, really just an old storage closet with asthma. Danny, our junior sysadmin with a permanent Dorito stain on his hoodie, blinked at the monitor. Stick around, hit subscribe, and when the next chapter drops, you'll be the first to know how this fire built something stronger. Hey, I think the mirrors aren't syncing, he muttered. Restart the demon, said Asha without looking up from a React tutorial she didn't understand. Danny did. Nothing. Worse logs were gone now. Like gone. By 1:12:4, servers refused connection. At 1:18, the credential vault hissed back, unauthorized access detected. This incident will be reported. To who nobody knew. It sounded less like a warning and more like a threat. Danny called Jared, who was of course out to lunch. Literally and otherwise. Meanwhile, Chad sat upstairs practicing how to say synergize without blinking. Me, I was curled up on the couch with a knit blanket, a bowl of off-brand kettle corn, and reruns of Columbo humming softly in the background. Every now and then, I tapped my terminal. Protocol Halcyon. Step 6 of 12 core backup purge complete. I didn't smile. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't even satisfying. It was surgical, like cauterizing a wound you know they'll never stop picking at. By 1:31 p.m., someone finally tried calling me. The call bounced. It had deactivated my email at 9:48 a.m. Sharp automated policy, no override. My phone extension, already reassigned to a new hire named Travis, who now sounded utterly terrified, as an irate product manager shouted through the receiver, "Where's Sloan?" At 1:36, a junior engineer named Maya unearthed the network map I built 6 years ago, hidden in a private repo called Definitely Not Critical Zip. It was a digital Picasso. Node hierarchies folded like origami, recursive configs that spelled limericks, access levels nested like Russian dolls. Maya opened the index file. One name appeared on every root permission, every escalation pipeline, every override script: S. Harper. N.S. Harper no longer existed. She messaged her manager, I think we deleted God." Around 2:00, Jared returned from lunch with a lukewarm Chipotle bowl and the swagger of someone who still believed DevOps meant stretching before deploying code. By then, the financial environment had started collapsing. Reconciliation scripts gone. Cron jobs null. But the system wasn't crashing. It was forgetting. Cleanly. Quietly. Like those pieces never existed. No error messages, just absence. And me. Still silent. No tweets, no threads, no cryptic rants on LinkedIn. Just a shadow crawling through a machine that forgot who built it. Because my fingerprints weren't on the keyboards anymore. They were in the walls, the code base, the bones. You could fire the architect, but you better pray she didn't take the blueprints. And then came the voice. Not over Slack. Not on a Zoom call, but a thin, strangled wheeze from the glass war room. Reboot it. Roll to yesterday. Silence. Then one voice, small and shaking. We can't. Jared, still chewing the edge of a tortilla chip, mumbled, We can't. You can't. Chad snapped his eyes, twitching. No, like the vault says we don't have permission. Across the office, monitors flickered like dying candles in a storm. Client dashboards blinked out one by one. Customer success was in freefall. Reps whisper-screamed into headsets, stalling contracts while loading tabs that led to digital voids. One woman was Googling how to send an invoice by fax. Someone tried to SSH into the mainframe. Access denied. Root permission not found. System rollback unavailable. By 3:14 p.m., nearly every cloud-hosted environment had flatlined. Microservices dropped like flies. Logs gone. Billing environment bricked. Their flagship demo page, once a slick animation of their intelligent engagement pipeline, now redirected to a 503 error with a sleepy squirrel icon and the message, Spidey is taking a nap. Back at my place, I poured another mug of jasmine green tea. No sugar, no phone. Just the rain tapping the windows and a bullfrog croaking by the backyard pond. I liked the frogs. They never interrupted me mid-sentence in meetings. Protocol, Halcyon. Step 8 of 12, API token library expunged. I watched it unfold in real time, not like a firestorm, but like a carefully measured demolition. At 3:27, Maya, the same junior dev who once asked if GitHub was a social media platform, uncovered the architecture file I'd hidden years ago in an S3 bucket labeled Churro, Jaji Recipes, V4, final.zip. She opened it with trembling fingers. What unfolded looked less like infrastructure and more like a conspiracy theorist's subway map. Color-coded, recursive, documented, and every single root credential traced back to one identity, S. Harper, global admin, retired 9:42 a.m. Not by choice. Maya's face went pale. She held out her laptop like it was radioactive. I think she was the only one. Jared squinted. The only what Maya whispered. The only everything. 3 seconds later, the first exec started shouting. By 3:34, the glass in the war room vibrated with panic. The CFO asked if there were off-site backups. The finance tech just nodded slowly because our accounting environment had lived in the same incinerated instance group. Chad's smartwatch buzzed 2 missed calls from the board. Chad's forehead glistened like a greased-up Thanksgiving ham. Just call her, someone shouted. He froze. She's locked out. Then offer her money. I don't care if she's at Burning Man with no pants, get her back in here. The phrase emergency consulting contracts started flying around like loose paper in a storm. Offers, 5Ks, 10Ks, 25Ks for 1 hour of access. None of them realized Protocol Halcyon had already reached Step 9 identity token invalidation. No money on Earth could override what was now an autonomous, self-defending digital firestorm. At 3:41, a regional client issued a cease and desist. At 3:44, the CEO's teenage daughter texted, "Why is your company trending under each cloud collapse?" At 3:45, I opened my browser, typed in their domain, saw the squirrel icon, whispered, "Spidey deserved better." I took another sip of tea, pulled the blanket higher on my shoulders, and watched the cathedral I built quietly. Carefully turned to ash behind reinforced glass. At 4:02 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number, silent ringtone. I'd set it that way years ago for moments exactly like this. I didn't even glance at it. Just let it buzz itself into oblivion while I watered the succulents along the kitchen window. Hands steady, motions deliberate. My tea was cold now, but that felt fitting. Some moments deserved to be sipped with a little bitterness. The voicemails kept coming, some frantic, some polite. One of them sounded like Jared wheezing out an apology in between please and just a minute of your time. I muted the phone. At 4:19, my lawyer called. I answered that one. "Hey, Barry," I said, like we were discussing a parking citation. "Sloan," he said, tone-clipped. "They've reached out. Multiple people, legal technical. They're asking if you'll consult." "One-time access?" I asked. "Exactly. Written contract. Infrastructure recovery. What's the offer?" 10 grand. For a few hours? I let the silence breathe. "Not for drama. For oxygen. They think I can recover it," I asked. He sighed. "They do." I nodded to no one. "Just me and the frog croaks." "That's cute," I whispered. Then I opened my laptop, typed a single sentence into the email Barry had forwarded, and hit send. No greeting, no pleasantries. Just one line. "It's already too late." I closed the lid, stared out the rain-fogged window as the sky shifted into that soft gunmetal gray. That was the thing about Protocol Halcyon. Once it activated, there was no off switch. It didn't just deny access, it erased it. Root keys burned. Fault credentials re-encrypted with self-scrubbing salts. Backups randomized, fragmented, and purged on entropy-mimicking intervals. Every login token ever tied to my name had already decomposed into digital mulch. Not because I was angry, not even because I wanted revenge, but because I learned the hard way systems are only loyal to the last person who nurtured them. And I stopped feeding theirs the moment they tossed me like old toner. At 4:33 p.m., Chad's office lights flickered. By 4:41, finance couldn't process invoices. At 4:47, their main client portal threw a 504 error server not found. The backup couldn't even be cloned. Snapshot policy had been overwritten by a script I once named Omega, Cascada, Sage. No rollback, no recovery, just the slow realization that with every passing second, the company was being dragged backward through a digital meat grinder. I poured myself a glass of wine not to celebrate, just a quiet ritual. Like shutting the hatch after the storm passes. At 5:02, Barry texted, "They're escalating to the board. Want to negotiate?" I replied. "They can't. There's nothing left to negotiate with." I didn't watch the fallout. Didn't need to. I knew where every bone was buried. And now, so did the fire. By Wednesday morning, the boardroom reeked of stale coffee and panic sweat. 8 directors on Zoom, 4 in the room, 1 pacing like a caffeinated weather anchor trying to predict a digital hurricane that already ripped through town. "This is unacceptable," barked the lead investor Martin voice like a chainsaw. "We're talking millions in SLA breaches. Government clients are walking." Chad tugged at his collar like it was choking him. "It kinda was. We're working on it," Chad stammered. Our team is investigating restoration. You had a team Martin cut in. You fired the team. You fired the one person who apparently had this entire operation duct taped together. Chad blinked. With respect, Sloan was a bottleneck. We didn't know she held global credentials. No documentation, another board member snapped. No succession planning. Not even a transition folder. Tyler, someone asked, how the hell did you not know who held root? She siloed everything. Chad barked too loud. She made herself irreplaceable on purpose. Jared, Ite's sacrificial lamb for the day, now visibly sweating through a wrinkled flannel, jumped in defensively. She wasn't on the official root access logs. We checked. She wrote the access log software, someone shouted back. She was the logs. And that's when the shouting match exploded. Chad blamed Ite for not flagging my control. Ite blamed HR for firing me without a single call to engineering. HR, represented by Megan, a wide-eyed intern 3 weeks into the job, mumbled, I just clicked the offboarding button in Bamboo HR. Silence. And then the CFO muttered, we're going to get sued. Everyone knew he was right. By 11:20 a.m., Slack had become a trench war of finger-pointing panicked gifs and desperate attempts to piece together what, if anything, still existed. Then someone leaked a private message from the CTO to a product manager. Why the hell did we fire her without an asset transition? Who signed off on this Jesus? It went viral internally. Someone turned it into a meme. Others used it as their Slack status. Chad tried launching an all-hands call. The Zoom room maxed out, then crashed. His backup plan. A video filmed from his car face lit by harsh dashboard LEDs. It was clipped and reshared within minutes. Captioned, we are exploring restoration opportunities through external partners. Someone edited it to we are exploring which organ to sell for ransom. I saw none of it. I wasn't in Slack. I wasn't on LinkedIn. But that didn't mean I was gone. I was in every shadow file they couldn't decrypt, every cron job running nonsense, every dashboard that now blinked into oblivion. Their dashboards spun and never landed. Meanwhile, I sat at my desk barefoot coding again. My own system. Fresh. Minimal. Clean. I wasn't gloating. I wasn't laughing. Because this wasn't revenge. This was necessary. They built a company on my spine, then acted shocked when yanking me out snapped the entire skeleton. At 2:47 p.m., the CTO submitted his resignation. Effective Friday. Cited philosophical misalignment on infrastructure governance. Chad forwarded it to the board with a single note. We'll find someone more aligned with agile recovery. 3 board members didn't even respond. One replied, you might be next. I closed my laptop at 5:00 p.m. sharp. I didn't need to hear them scream anymore. I just needed them to listen. The file was still on my laptop, buried in a folder labeled Old Recs, right between a 2018 tax spreadsheet and a half-finished PowerPoint titled, Why Single Sign-On Shouldn't Be Optional, You Morons. I hadn't opened it in years, but the file name triggered something like muscle memory. Opasi risk, mitigation, proposal, sharper, final 3, PDF. I double-clicked. The document opened in a clean, sharp layout, one I'd poured 20 unpaid hours into after watching a rival company implode from sloppy offboarding. I'd submitted it back when we were still using folding tables as desks, before the rebrand, before Chad, before I gave up believing anyone upstairs could read beyond a bullet point. I'd written it at night, quietly, carefully, because I thought it mattered. It laid out everything. Account transitions, credential audits, dependency flowcharts, and contingency models. On page 17, a bold header, section 6.2 kill switch scenarios. I read it out loud, soft and bitter like a bedtime story no one wanted to hear. In the event a root-level architect account is terminated without credential continuity and automated validation fails to confirm administrator integrity. Failsafe protocol may interpret this as a hostile breach. In such a case, sanitization procedures will trigger. Restoration will be impossible without preloaded off-switch tokens. They never asked me what that meant. They never responded. The board marked it not aligned with company priorities. Chad once mocked it during an off-site, called it paranoia wrapped in PowerPoint, told me to stick to the keyboard stuff. I remember just nodding and leaving early. I'd driven home in silence that night years ago and added Step 12 to Protocol Halcyon. Now, reading the document again, I didn't feel rage, not even pride, just clarity. The warning had always been there. The manual, the lifeline. They never read it. They chose not to. I scrolled to the footer, updated the timestamp to today's date, exported it as a PDF, and uploaded it not to LinkedIn, not to any blog, but to a private forum for people who know what uptime costs. The ones who've held whole systems together with duct tape, cold coffee, and pure spite. The post title, When You Fire Your Architect. Know what you're firing, no name, no initials, just the file. The thread exploded within minutes. Replies rolled in. This is terrifyingly real. I've been there. This woman deserves a statue. Whoever wrote this, thank you. One comment from Sweden said Protocol Halcyon. I thought that was an urban legend. I closed the tab. Didn't care about likes or applause or digital head pats. What mattered was someone finally read it. Someone finally listened. Outside thunder rolled low across the hills. My succulents shimmered with rain. Inside my terminal pulsed with quiet logs. Step 11 of 12. Final access tables cleared. I shut my laptop. This wasn't an ending. It was the world finally catching up to the warning I gave them years ago. Too bad no one opened the damn PDF. Saturday, 8th, 17 a.m. The company's website, once full of buzzwords, hover effects, and grinning interns, now displayed one brutal line of text: 503, service unavailable. Spidey, the squirrel gone. So were the login forms, the status pages, the cloying onboarding pop-up, ready to cloud harder. All of it vaporized. The infrastructure hadn't crashed. It had ceased to exist. Clients woke up to expired API keys and auto-canceled contracts. AWS bills flatlined. Monitoring tools returned gibberish. One support integration sent out a midnight alert. Your system heartbeat has stopped. Do not attempt resuscitation. No backups, no logs, no anything. At 9:12 a.m., a regional compliance officer filed the breach report. Not because they asked, because by law, someone had to. I read the compliance notice while eating toast with almond butter and exactly 3 blueberries. I like symmetry. I didn't gloat, didn't post a smug victory thread or drop some cheeky gif captioned "Guess who had root." I just watched the ash settle. Then my inbox pinged. Not the corporate one. That was long gone. This was my personal inbox. Quiet, clean. A new LinkedIn message blinked into view. From Ava Langston, VP of Talent Acquisition HaldenTech. Saw your forum post on risk architecture. Elegant and honestly chilling. We're hiring a CTO. Big budget. No frat boys. We read proposals around here. Would love to talk if you're open. Even just to chat. I stared at it, and something inside me flickered. Not adrenaline, not vengeance, hope. The rare, careful kind. Like finding a green shoot in scorched soil. I clicked her profile. Woman-led firm. Small lean. Every leader listed actual tech experience. They were building tools for disaster recovery. Irony at its absolute finest. I took another bite of toast. Thought for a while. Then opened a new tab and typed Red Canopy. Dev a domain I'd quietly purchased years ago after watching a time-lapse of a forest fire. Days after the flames passed, green buds pushed through blackened soil under the shadow of a single red leaf tree still standing. I hit enter. Nothing yet, just a placeholder. But that was about to change. At 10:32 a.m., I spun up a new project scaffold. Clean, elegant, no spaghetti, no secrets. I opened the notes I'd written across 3 years' blueprints for a system that would never need Protocol Halcyon because it wouldn't be built on silence, neglect, or theft. In the new README, I typed 4 words: you don't erase me. And below that, you hire me or you get out of my way. I hadn't written that for the world. I wrote it for me. By noon, I'd replied to Ava. Short, direct, clean. Let's talk. Because this wasn't just the collapse of a cloud. This was the rebirth of the woman who built it, and she was finally done building for people who didn't even know her name. Monday, 6:45 a.m. The first sad latte was poured in the boardroom that used to pretend it ran the world. Before anyone on the now former IT team could Google cyber resilience consultant. Before Chad could rehearse lessons learned in his bathroom mirror, Red Canopy Dev went live. No fanfare, no flashy promo, just a ripple. A black and white landing page. Crisp code. No animation, no fluff. Centered at the top in bold serif font. Founded by the woman you shouldn't have fired. No name, no history, no mission, vision, values, corporate mush. Just that line. A gravestone with a heartbeat. Clicking about redirected to a single paragraph. I don't build for companies that gamble with trust. I don't design for execs who measure engineers by smile count at happy hour. And I don't fix fires I warned you about 3 years ago. Build systems that respect the people behind them. If you get it, you get it. The blog had one post, no comments, no SEO tricks, no claps. Title, You Never Had Root. Not a rant, a scalpel. 3,000 words of surgically precise insight on executive blindness, on offboarding disasters, on the quiet brutality of ignoring those who hold your digital spine together, on how trust once broken doesn't vanish, it evolves into contingency plans with teeth. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. One line landed like a punch in Kashmir. We document your future, then you forget our names. Another infrastructure is invisible until it isn't. Then you pay not just in dollars, but in absence. Final line, you taught me building alone is risky. Burning it down, that's art. By noon, the post hit Reddit. Hacker News by lunch. Dev Twitter called it a manifesto. 5 startups emailed me job offers. 2 VCs asked for calls. 1 journalist called me a digital arsonist with integrity. I declined the interviews. I didn't need a platform. I'd already built one. Back at the ruins of my old company, Chad paced legal chewing antacids, while external counsel whispered words like constructive sabotage. Do we even know what she took? Someone asked. She didn't take anything, someone else answered. She just stopped giving. And with that, I was whole, not gloating, just done. If you made it to the end, thank you. I didn't burn it all down out of spite. I did it because no one listened until it was already on fire. So tell me, have you ever held something together while they called you replaceable? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's hear your stories. If you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or quietly powerful, this one was for you. And if no one's told you lately, your work matters. You matter. Hit subscribe if you believe in building with integrity and walking away when they treat your value like it's invisible.